Thank you so much, and good morning to all those who are joining from this part of the world, and good evening to all from Philippines and Asia Pacific, and so on. Now, my dear brothers and sisters, we are studying the Christ Object Lesson, the book of Christ Object Lesson. We have reached chapter 23. Okay, we are going to start chapter 23. This is a very important chapter. I could say this also very important chapter because this particular chapter is talking about us. Okay, but in this the story or the parable, Jesus talking about the Israelites, the Jewish nation. But wherever the Jewish nation is mentioned, we have to replace there. It's about us. It's talking about us. Now, today's the title of this chapter is the Lord's Vineyard. Lord's Vineyard, and again, there's a small subtitle here. It says the Jewish nation. Okay, so replace that. Okay, now we go straight away to uh, the first initial paragraph to understand what is it about. The parable of the two sons was followed by the parable of the vineyard. In the one, Christ had set before the Jewish teachers the importance of obedience. In the other, he pointed to the rich blessings bestowed upon Israel, and in these showed God's claim to their obedience. So, what I understand here is God wanted to claim, he wanted to claim the obedience of the Jewish nation. He's claiming because he already saved them, protected them, sustained them, blessed them, and all these things are there. So the Israel, the Jewish nation owes God. So how can they repay? God is only asking the obedience. This is what in simple language we can understand here. I read further. In the other, he pointed to the rich blessings bestowed upon Israel. So that is again is talking about bestowed upon Israel because he gave such a lot of blessings. Brethren, what about us today? He blessed us. He given us everything. And we are being called a special people, a peculiar people, a chosen generation. And we are being called also the priest and the royal priest. So what more than that? We are being given a special identity to you and me. And we carry the present truth. We carry the everlasting gospel. And we are so special today. So that's why we are just like in the past, the Jewish nation can be compared with us. I read further. He set before them the glory of God's purpose, which through obedience they might have fulfilled, withdrawing the veil from the future. He showed how, by failure to fulfill his purpose, the whole nation was forfeiting his blessing and bringing ruin upon itself. Now, what happened to them? The biggest blessing they received was Jesus Christ. They rejected him and they killed him. And after that, still, Jesus said that, forgive them, Father. And then still God wanted to forgive and wanted to give them one more chance. Now, what happened? They killed the disciples, they killed the apostles, and they killed many, many, many followers of Jesus. This is enough. So that is the downfall of Israelites. So, my dear brothers and sisters, today we are standing in the same unsafe ground. We are also being blessed and we are being called a special people. How are we reacting is the question before you and me. Sorry. The next paragraph, it's talking about the description of this vineyard is given by the prophet Isaiah. So what is this? Because Christ is comparing Israel as a vineyard. Now that story or that parable is generated based on prophet Isaiah's statement in Isaiah chapter 5, verses 1 and 2. We can find that. I'll read that passage from the book. Now will I sing to my well-beloved a song of my beloved touching his vineyard. My well-beloved hath a vineyard in a very fruitful hill, and he fenced it and gathered out the stones thereof and planted it with the choicest wine and built a tower in the midst of it, and also made a winepress therein. And he looked that it should bring forth grapes. Now, just imagine every condition was met to be so favorable for the growth of the best wine, and the correct breed or correct they identify the correct the seed or seedling or whatever, and then they planted that and expected that to grow. But what happened? What happened? Because all the conditions were met and expecting a nice growth and a fruitful harvest. That's the goal of every farmer. And on top of it, a wine press also being established in the middle. That's what we understand here. Now, this is mentioned in Isaiah 5, 1 and 2, because Isaiah comparing that exactly Israel as a nation of God choice and being blessed and being chosen. Now, I go further and to the next paragraph of Christ Object Lesson, page 284. Here, so God has chosen a people from the world to be trained and educated by Christ. Now, this is talking about us. Okay. The prophet says, the vineyard of the Lord of hosts is the house of Israel, and the men of Judah his pleasant plant. Isaiah 5:7. Upon this people, God had bestowed great privileges, blessings, them rich from his abundant goodness. He looked for them to honor him by yielding fruit. They were to reveal the principles of his kingdom. Now, this is exactly what God is expecting from us. And he wanted us to be fruitful. He wanted us to reveal the conditions of the kingdom and to proclaim the everlasting gospel. This is all the missions given to us, expecting very high expectations of God. And he said he trusted and entrusted everything to us. Now, I read one more sentence here. In the midst of the fallen, wicked world, they were to represent the character of God. So, this is what exactly the essence expected from us. God wanted us to have his character. God wanted us to replicate his nature. So, this is exactly expected from us. So I don't want to go far to say that, okay, it's talking about Israel, it is talking about Jewish nation. Brethren, it's talking about you and me. It's talking about us today. I'll go to the next paragraph here. As a Lord's vineyard, they were to produce fruit altogether different from that of the heathen nations. These idolatrous people had given themselves up to work, wickedness, violence and crime, greed, oppression, and the most corrupt practices were indulged without restraint. Iniquity, degradation, and misery were the fruits of the corrupt tree. In the marked contrast was to be the fruit borne on the vine of God's planting. So this is a contrasting thing. So, brethren, we are being compared to the good wine, bringing forth the good spirit. What are the fruits of the spirit? What are the fruits of the spirit? That's what we learn in the Galatians. The fruit of the spirit starts with love, long suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, and temperance. So we have to memorize this, and everybody have to have it. I memorized when I was going to Sabbath school when I was a tiny kid. So I still remember that. And we used to sing like a rhyme. And we used to sing that fruit of the spirit is love. And so still remember, we need to practice, brethren. Memorizing is not going to help us. We need to understand that. Why? Because the next paragraph explains that why. It was the privilege of the Jewish nation to represent the character of God as it had been revealed to Moses. In answer to the prayer of Moses, show me thy glory, the Lord promised, I will make all my goodness pass before thee. Exodus 33, 18 and 19. So Moses insisted that, God, I want to see you. I want to see you. And then he said that, okay, I will pass my goodness in front of you now. And then we see the next sentence, and the Lord passed by before him and proclaimed, the Lord God, merciful and gracious, long suffering and abundant in goodness and truth, keeping mercy for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin. Exodus 34, 6 and 7. Now Moses saw him. And what did Moses see? Moses saw his character. Moses saw God's character. He's not explaining to us that, okay, he's fair, he's tall, he's nice, he's smart, he's handsome, he's broad. No, he's not talking about his abs, nothing. Okay. He's talking about God's character. He saw the goodness of God. My dear brothers and sisters, what is expected from you and me? To show his character, show God on earth. So these good traits, the fruits of the Spirit expected from you and me, we need to display God. So that's why we have been created with his image. It doesn't mean to say that today I look like this. Okay, half of my hair is not there, I'm bald, so God is bald. Okay, I can't see properly, so I'm wearing glasses. Okay, God cannot see because I am being created like him. No, brethren, it is not we are talking about. We are in a sinful nature. This is a sinful nature, and I'm displaying that sinful nature. But we are talking about God's character. So that character need to be reflected from us. So Moses saw that character. Moses see that, and it's so beautifully explained here. And then and one step further, Moses, what did Moses ask God? Show me thy glory. Can anyone survive in front of God's glory? No, not with this sinful nature and sinful eyes. But Moses was so greedy, I could say, or I could say that he was so enthusiastic or anxious to see God, and he told God, God, I want to see your glory. So, but God was merciful. He showed him to Moses, and like a friend, face to face, he saw God. But when we understand, Moses was not explaining Moses was not explaining about how he looks like. He's explaining his nature, God's nature. So, my dear brothers and sisters, we all have seen God. We through the word, when we understand and we realize and we try to follow and try to adopt his character. So that means we have seen him. We are seeing him every day. So that's why we are trying to imitate him. We are trying to adopt his goodness and his nature. We are supposed to. So that's exactly what is expected. And further, I read from Christ Object Lesson, page 285. This was a fruit that God desired from his people in the purity of their characters, in the holiness of their lives, in their mercy and loving kindness and compassion. They were to show that the law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. Psalms 19:7. Now, it is a converting message, and it is a converting nature, a converting loving kindness. So, we say that, okay, we wanted to scold somebody, we wanted to do something, especially when small kids, they do some naughty things, maybe, the things like, the children, the childish ways they try to do things, and we wanted to punish them, but when we see them, we forget everything. When they smile, we fall, and that is what we understand. So here we need to understand this very clearly, that we go to God, and we go to Christ, and we understand him. And when we have that and we experience him, we try to adopt him. We try to love him more, because at this moment we are not loving him. Why? Because we are not loving him because we don't see him. We don't see him. This is a problem we have. So we need to understand this clearly. Now, it is a privilege, brethren. We have to understand that. I go to the next paragraph here. Through the Jewish nation, once again, Jewish nation, we are comparing ourselves. Through the Jewish nation, it was God's purpose to impart rich blessings to all peoples. Through Israel, the way was to be prepared for the diffusion of his light to the whole world. So we are trying to be like a moon, receiving the light from the sun and reflecting it out. So we should be like that, receiving the light from the Son of God, and we receive and we reflect his light. So it's expected from you and me. And God, especially from the Jewish nation, he expected that. The nations of the world, through following corrupt practices, had lost the knowledge of God. This is something, a very serious statement, brethren. Now we understand here. I like to repeat that sentence. The nations of the world, okay, all the nations of the world, through following corrupt practices, had lost the knowledge of God. So how can you lose something which you don't have? So that means everyone had the knowledge of God, but they lost it because of their corrupt practices. My dear brothers and sisters, what about us today? Have we lost God? If we lose him, because of our corrupt practices, we are losing his light, we are losing his influence, we are losing his blessings. Ultimately, we are heading to ruin, just like the Jewish nation. So this is very serious, brethren. We have our light, we have our truth, and we know God. But through the corrupt practices, if we lose him, the destiny of ours is pathetic. So we need to be very, very careful in this. I read further. Yet, in his mercy, God did not blot them out of existence. He purposed to give them opportunity for becoming acquainted with him through his church. Now, this is important to you and me. And today, he assigns the church to take care of or the replace that that to proclaim the duty or the proclaim the light. And the in the past, that the tabernacle, the sanctuary was established in the midst of all the tribes and all the tents. The middle, you find the tabernacle of God. And in that, in the most holy place, there God's mercy is being shown to the people. And upon the mercy seat, there was the Shekinah glory. So that's what we understand, that same merciful God. And we understand he is living in us and living through us. And we are proclaiming as a church, as a group of people who are proclaiming that light or the truth. We are the gospel proclaimers or the gospel preachers, because all the others are just proclaiming a gospel, but we are proclaiming the gospel, the everlasting gospel. The everlasting gospel is what we are carrying. It's more heavier and it's more complete. And God wanted us to have an organic nature of love towards him. It should not be mechanical. He just wants us, every time we talk, we walk, and we think, every time it should be Christ. We should have a Christ likeness and Christ centered thinking, working, walking, and seeing, hearing, everything. So it should be Christ first nature that expected from you and me. For that, what did he do? I read further here. He designed that the principles revealed through his people should be the means of restoring the moral image of God in man. Now, what are these principles? These are the characters of God. Characters of God, that the marriage vow, the Ten Commandments, we understand that that is a marriage vow, brethren, as I have explained in the past also. That is a marriage vow. The Ten Commandments are the marriage vow. The marriage has taken place with Israel, and God came to Mount Sinai, and he made that covenant with Israel and called Israel his wife, and he's a husband, and it is a bond, and it is a covenant signed with blood. That's what we understand. Because every time, that I don't want to go and explain further, but the marriage should be a covenant with blood. So that we need to understand. Most of the mature people will understand this, what I'm trying to say. Now, we need to understand here. So that blood relationship, that blood bond we are having with Christ. And he shed his own blood for us, brethren. So what more than that? He's only expecting us to be true to that marriage vow we have made. And we said, I do, when we got baptized, but we are not following that. We are not following. This is what is expected from you and me. Now, I like to read the next paragraph, and I like also to mention another character here, in addition to what we study here, that uh, it was for the accomplishment of this purpose that God called Abraham out from his idolatrous kindred and bade him dwell in the land of Canaan. I will make of thee a great nation, he said, and I will bless thee and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. Genesis 12:2. That is a covenant made with Abraham. The character I'm talking about is also that after Abraham, his grandson, Jacob, God made the covenant with Jacob. And then further, many covenants God making with his people. And then we understand on the cross, Jesus making the covenant with us. And it is a covenant by death. And we understand. And then through resurrection of Jesus, we still have that hope that he is living and he is going to come to take us to stay with him forever. This is what we need to understand. This is what we need to understand. I read one more the paragraph before I close today. The descendants of Abraham, Jacob, and his posterity were brought down to Egypt, that in the midst of that great and wicked nation, they might reveal the principles of God's kingdom, the integrity of Joseph, and his wonderful work in preserving the lives of the whole Egyptian people were a representation of the life of Christ. Moses and many others were witnesses for God. Now, we can see this exact situation in us also, because we are in the midst of uh, pagan practices and pagan religions, and we are among them. And don't ever think that, we are among all the Christians and we are right round, we have brethren, they are all following the pagan practices. That's important to note. I read further. In bringing forth Israel from Egypt, the Lord again manifested his power and his mercy, his wonderful works in this deliverance from bondage, and his dealings with them in their travels through the wilderness were not for their benefit alone. These were to be an object lesson to the surrounding nations. The Lord revealed himself as a God above all human authority and greatness. The signs and wonders he wrought in behalf of his people showed his power over nature, over the greatest of those who worshipped nature. God went through the proud land of Egypt as he will go through the earth in the last days. It is exactly what we are going through. We are in the pilgrimage, that going from Egypt to Canaan, the heavenly Canaan. So we are also displaying exactly what the Jewish nation is supposed to have uh, expressed and carried forward his legacy, but they failed. And what about us today? Are we failed, and are we failing, or are we continuing in the same path as the Jewish nation? These are the questions before you and me. Let's examine further about this chapter and in relation with yours and mine character to be just to be just like God's character is what is expected from you and me. May the good Lord help us to understand him and his character, and we can replicate his love to this world. This is my wish and prayer. Amen.